guys, and welcome back to She Established. I'm Kirti.
And I'm Mahita. And today we sat down with Aliyah, Hiram, and Caroline Woliver, the Program Manager and Director of Leadership at YWCA Columbus,
A nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering women and marginalized communities.
In this interview, we address head-on what it means to be a change maker in society, whether that's through building self-confidence or discovering what it means to actually build value in your community.
So, without further ado, let's get into the interview.
We just want to start off with what is like one major challenge or example of backlash that you guys faced while advocating for both racial and gender equality?
Sure. So first, I'll start a little bit with, YWCA Columbus, we have a mission to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. So as you alluded into your question, it has been a particularly challenging year in 2025. And, something that sets YWCA apart is that we're both a direct service organization as well as a social justice organization. And, we refuse to separate those two functions because doing so would ignore the root causes of inequity, because real change requires not only meeting people's immediate needs right now, but also transforming the systems that really create those needs in the first place. And so I say that because in 2025, despite our commitment, it was an exceptionally challenging year that has continued into 2026. After the transition of presidential administrations, and the release of that anti-DEI executive order that you all may recall, we've been experiencing this chilling effect where corporations, foundations, and other institutions are ending their funding priorities that supported racial and gender equity and other social justice initiatives. And so we've seen longtime funders, withhold annual contributions out of fear of retaliation or, the potential for lost funding from the federal government. And also because we are a provider of shelter, permanent supportive housing, and childcare, we actually rely on government funds to support the needs of our community. And funding that our federal government is trying right now to weaponize as a threat against continuing racial equity work. And so we really stand firm in our mission, and that mission guides us through these types of political wins. It doesn't bend to them. So I will say not only has funding been a tremendous challenge over the last, I would say year and a quarter, but there is a constant impact on our team as well. I, along with Aliyah, we work a part of the leadership and social justice department at YWCA Columbus, leading all of the social justice work that comes out of our agency. And when we're combating extremism and a never-ending workload, it can be emotionally taxing on, myself, others responsible for the social justice part of the organization, all of whom possess marginalized identities. And so really working to balance that emotional and physical impact of doing and living the work on our team is always a real concern, which is why it's so important that we make space for each other to show up as full human beings and build in opportunities to, play and have fun together and find some joy. So, while it's a challenge, I also find that, doing this work is an incredible privilege, and getting to do it alongside the team that we have is even more so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to follow up with that, I loved your response, by the way. That was it really helps us see into more about how much it takes to really just run a nonprofit and advocate for what you care about. What are some experiences through both of your lives that made you guys want to work in YWCA and fill your specific roles as Director of Leadership and Social Justice Program Manager of Bright Futures?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one. So I am the program manager of empowerment programs, including Bright Futures. So it's such a privilege to be a part of that work. And that includes really equipping leaders along the way and making sure that girls feel empowered and ready to take on, and gender expansive youth feel empowered and engaged to take on what's happening in the world today. So leading up to this, I was actually an eighth grade teacher in West Columbus, and I loved it so, so much. I love my kids so much. Some of them still reach out to me and somehow are graduating high school, which is insane to me. And so it's really cool to be able to work with youth still. The other arm being I get to work with adults with the Kathy Duffy SB Leadership for Social Change program. And so I was a first gen educator, or excuse me, college student. And so going through college and going through trying to explore my professionalism by myself almost, and my family was there and present and very supportive, but it was a first experience for me. And so being able to do that also is just so enriching and so empowering to be a part of. And so in this work, it's hard work, it's tough sometimes, it's gritty, but it's empowering to know that you're making change and people are able to stand in their identity and who they are, and take that step forward to be a voice for the voiceless. So that's what really gets me going and keeps me going in this work at YW. It's truly an incredible role to be a part of as a program manager.
I think it's so amazing how you've worked with children in the past and how you use that now. I want to ask a question based off of that.
Yeah.
How do you see young girls growing up now? Do you see how their mindset kind of changes from a younger age to an older age? And how do you think society plays a role in that?
That is a wonderful question. So I've noticed in these days that I'm with youth today, they're way more curious. So kiddos your age are asking more specific, pointed questions, more boldness, and that is so beautiful to see and the change in that. I notice from when they're younger, so around that eighth grade age, and really trying to figure themselves out, it's a little more nervous to take risks, but looking for that mentor, right? That person to look up to. And so my hope is to be able to be a portion of that step in their role to have somebody they can ask questions to, right? I've noticed as they become like young professionals, just like myself, you really start to stand in your values and who you are. And so if that's something, if anyone is ever wondering what you need to do from that time to as you're coming into a young professional, find your values and stand in that. I mean, literally journal it out and write it down. What do you stand 10 toes down on? And really start to flex those muscles. And that's how you're going to get better. And that's really how I notice people change throughout that time. So it's really cool to see. Yeah.
100%.
I'll just add that so Aliyah actually used to work for another organization that we partner with that does a lot of nationwide research around girls' experience and confidence. And what we find is that between the fifth and ninth grade, we're seeing a significant dip in confidence. And that makes a lot of sense because of all of the messages that girls are receiving about how they're quote unquote supposed to look and act and what constitutes their value, right? And we see that when we have conversations with girls through Bright Futures and other opportunities to really unpack some of that and like how folks have been socialized and internalized some of those harmful messages about what it means to act like a lady, right? In today's day and age, we can really start to kind of break through some of those internalized messages that not only harm girls' confidence, but then shape them into adulthood and their long-term careers and the partners that they may or may not choose and things of that sort. So it really is, it's really an opportunity for us to just have open dialogue and conversation and put some language to things that girls are maybe experiencing, but folks aren't talking about in a way that really allows folks to have more opportunity to explore who they are and step into their power, as Aliyah said.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that's so amazing. I mean, as high school students ourselves, like we definitely can like see that
Yeah.
and how like the double standards for um like young girls compared to young men. And just going off of that, a lot of our audience is also like mostly young girls and people kind of our age or in college. And we just want to know like what advice would you give to our audience about like how to effectively advocate for themselves and what they believe in and also just like being treated equally.
Mhm. I would say it's incredibly important to start with your own journey of unlearning. So, we've all been socialized into a society that upholds white supremacy. And it's important that we begin to kind of unpack, again, how we've internalized things about our identities and norms and the capitalistic and patriarchal values of our culture, and seek out resources from a wide array of different authors and creators with identities and experiences that are different from your own. And I think that we so often get focused on advocating externally that we forget to do the important self-work that is so foundational to effective activism. Otherwise, you could be unintentionally perpetuating harmful norms and practices, or miss out on important historical context that's really needed to create solutions that actually advance equity, as opposed to just kind of sticking a band-aid on an issue. And I would say for that, first, start to connect with your why. What issues are you passionate about, and decide where you want to put your time and efforts. And if you're not sure yet, because there's so many things to learn about yourself as you continue throughout your life, you're going to learn new things, you're going to change. And so it's great to always take inventory. And so investing in growing your self-awareness can be hugely helpful, whether that's through assessments like StrengthsFinder or Enneagram. But you can also gain different kinds of exposure to different experiences. You can journal, meditate, make vision boards. The better you know yourself, I would say the more values aligned initiatives that you'll pursue and contribute in ways that utilize your unique strengths. And I think that, in general, there's so many great coalitions out there that are doing great work to analyze bills and track moving legislation, notify folks of committee hearings so that people can testify. And so I would say start by, thinking about what issues you're wanting to get engaged in, start that research. So if you're interested in education advocacy, there's a great statewide coalition called Honesty for Ohio Education. Or if you're interested in LGBTQ plus advocacy, places like Equality Ohio. But I would say our main message is to do something. We all have such unique skills and experiences that really can positively contribute to our collective liberation. And so finding ways that you can plug in that really align with your values and is a way that you can express yourself, feeling like you're authentic in your activism is great. And of course, we encourage you to take our online trainings and bring Bright Futures to your schools and, things of that sort. But, and so we can help to support you along the way. But doing that self-interrogation and then connecting with your why is a really great place to start.
And just as a quick add too, something I love to remember is that knowledge is power and knowledge shared is power multiplied, right? So don't feel like you have to change so much about yourself to be able to be empowered and take a step and share something. You are knowledgeable about something right now and where you're sitting, right? There's something that gives you joy or gives you a passion, right? So just tap into that natural gifting that you have too and really start to develop that. And then find people who maybe you don't have that natural gifting and come together. There's strength in numbers in so many different ways. I don't envy your age coming up with all of this AI and all the things you have to decipher misinformation and all the things. So I don't envy that. I can't imagine growing up with that. But what I do know is that you guys are well equipped to navigate what's real, what's fake, creation, things like that. And so just really lean into the facts and lean into the knowledge and share it. Don't be scared to share it.
Right, 100%.
I think that's such a useful tool for us as well, like just building off what we have. And I have a question that based off of that, because you guys are so instilled in your values. I can see it just from how you're talking and the passion that's already on us already from what you're saying. What is a specific moment I want to know from you guys that made you think this is why I do this? Whether that's when you're working in YA or even working for social justice. I love it, like what you said before about making sure that women are aware of what's going on currently, even in law or in the court, stuff like that. But yeah, I just want to know more about your why I do this moment.
Yeah, I can say on one recently, we did a workshop recently at a conference, and I sat down with one of with my partner. My co is Navia Nala, who is incredible. She also runs Bright Futures with myself during our time in our workshops. And we sat down with one of the high schoolers after our workshop, and she was asking me a question about advocacy and walkouts and what that looks like. And this was an aha moment for me to sit back and say, you know, there are so many that I think want to be engaged, but maybe are too nervous or don't know who to ask or how to navigate if they have a barrier at school that's like, I can't walk out, but what can I do instead to still make sure that I'm engaging? Because I don't know. I just stop after I can't do a walkout, right? So that moment got me thinking about the curiosity and openness that so many kiddos like you and youth and young professionals even have, and ideas and thoughts and creativity that there's nowhere to channel it usually because there's a lot of pressure that educators are put on their shoulders right now, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's just the climate right now. So I'm grateful to have a free program to be able to come in as a facilitator and provide that space for you all. And so my aha moment was being able to walk someone through how they can be engaged as a high schooler, and not be scared to ask me questions that maybe they can't ask an educator quite yet, just because of the truth in a teacher having to secure their work and their job too, you know? So that's really my aha. I love it. I love having the curiosity in front of me.
I'm gonna double tap that. And I would say like empowering change makers is so it's such a privilege to witness, to see people step into their power. And, you know, Aliyah and I have the privilege of being able to connect with so many young professionals through the Leadership for Social Change program, which is a program for young professionals and gender expansive leaders between 21 and 40. And it's all about developing leadership skills specifically for producing social change. And we also have justice, equity, and belonging training programs. And so getting to see those aha moments, and then to see the ripple effect that comes from their leadership, where we have seen Leadership for Social Change graduates go on to run nonprofits and to help lead government and create health equity programs with Columbus Public Health. And so I would say, you know, every Leadership for Social Change graduation where we get to just revel in the wonder that is the powerful women and gender expansive folks in our program is a this is why I do it moment. And I'll just add that while, you know, yes, there's absolutely rewards for helping others and empowering folks, I like to think of it also as that we're helping each other, that it's reciprocal, you know, from those that we are supporting in our housing programs, and our leadership programs, to the people on my team like Aliyah. You know, I have the benefit of learning from passionate and resilient people every single day. And, you know, of course, who doesn't love working at a workplace where you can go in and commiserate about what's happening in the world, while also working together to try and make a difference. You know, again, it's a real gift every day.
Right. And like, I think especially like with what's happening in the world today, it's really important for just like starting from a young age to really find out, you know, what you're passionate about and find the people around you who feel the same way as you, and you have that space to talk about. And I think that's really great what you guys are doing because it can be hard sometimes, you know, in school or places like that to really talk about the issues going on and what's happening. So I think like you guys creating that space for that is really amazing and very cool. And I was just wondering, like, why do you think it's so important as young people to kind of use our platform and like our voice to express like what we believe in and like express our beliefs about what's important and what's kind of um the real issues going on?
That's a great question. You know, to really make, because it's a lofty goal too. And so to really make change, and we know to make social change and change the systems and that continue inequity, you really have to start with hearts and minds. And I think a gifting that you all have as young people is the ability to really see people in their hearts and their minds, right? And to give them information and knowledge and learn from a wealth of knowledge to be able to move that forward. So I would encourage each young person to know that if this is the era of influencers too. So let's be honest, that has become quite normal around here. And
Definitely.
influencing can be great and amazing and empowering, and it can also be kind of scary, right? So it's really important that if you have a platform, if you have your values and you know that you have them, really stand on it and know that from the front to the back of your hand about what that looks like. And social change happens, like you guys already mentioned, finding your crew, getting together, rallying together, and standing up for what you believe in, because it is heart and mind. No one's going to listen to you yelling at them or telling them something different if they don't trust your intentions and who you are, and that you're bringing factual knowledge, right? We have to trust each other and accountability. And if I can't trust what you're saying, it's going to be really hard for me to listen to what you're saying. So really paying attention to that heart and mind work along the way can really keep you grounded in who you are. And those values are really important.
And I totally agree. And I think, young people have really shaped resistance efforts throughout time, right? Like we have seen everything from um, looking at the civil rights movement to influencing the LGBTQ plus movement. There have been so many positive changes that have come from youth activism, and so I think that there's a unique opportunity, especially now with social media, and the curiosity and kind of open-mindedness that our youth are having right now. And so when you think about using your platform, as a community, it's critically important for us to acknowledge the historical role that government has played in creating and maintaining racial inequities. And so as we're thinking about, Aliyah saying like you have to be a trusted resource, part of that is learning the true history, right? So like through decisions about who could gain citizenship and who could vote, who could own property, and who could live where. Government at all levels have influenced the distribution of advantage and disadvantage in our society today. And while, we may not have, so one, I guess it's important to know that historical context and help others to connect those dots between laws and the codification of oppression and how that shows up today. But I think also, while none of us have been around maybe when some of those decisions were made, we still have a responsibility to right those wrongs today. And I always love using this analogy that was introduced to me by Isabel Wilkerson. She's an author of this great book called Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent, if you haven't read it. But she compares the current state of our nation, so all of the dominant structures and systems and norms, to an old house that we have inherited and we now are living in. So none of us were around when the foundations were laid, or the structures put in place. And nonetheless, we are still in this house now that poses a real risk to the well-being and actually sometimes the livelihood and existence of those that we are sharing this dwelling with. And so we may have identified the ways that the house is harming us, and that leaves us with a choice, right? We can either let the house just completely deteriorate and harm the people that are inside of it, or we can work to make the house a safe home for everyone involved. And so the way that I really approach things is that we have to all use our platforms, and youth included, because silence is complicity. When we have all been socialized again into this culture of white supremacy, neutrality is really just going to uphold the status quo. And so, we all have the ability to either act in ways that reinforce racism and oppression or work to counteract it. And so, we encourage you to use your platforms to make anti-racist change, but within your sphere of influence, right? You don't have to right now, like go to Congress and try to, tackle every harmful bill that's happening, but think about where you do have influence. Who do you know that has access to power and change making? Who are those decision makers? And then be able to be intentional about how you're using your sphere of influence to influence that change.
Malcolm X does say, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. So make sure you stand on something.
Yes, I've heard that quote, but yeah, I completely agree. I think being complacent is like basically doing nothing. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, seeing as our time is coming to an end and we don't want to take up too much more of your time, Just have one last question to ask, and that's if you could have one last thing to say to a younger version of yourself, or even you as a younger child, what is one thing you would say that maybe would help them kind of get out of their shell and start doing something that they love and something that they're passionate about and help them find that?
Great question. Something that I would say is stand in authentically who you are. Being biracial, I think I was always trying to just assimilate to who I was next to growing up, and I never knew who I actually was until I was in college. And so I encourage, like, you don't have to base your identity on what other people are reacting to you as. You are who you are, and you deserve a seat at that table. And if that table's presented to you, don't you dare pass it up because you feel like you're unequipped. You sit down and you will become the person that this opportunity was presented as, and you'll shine. Trust that you'll shine because you already have it in you. So that's a piece that I wish I was told when I was younger.
I love that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I growing up as a queer woman that has navigating several disabling health conditions, wanting to be part of something bigger or contribute to social change has always been kind of a part of my why, even if I didn't quite have the language for it at the time. But I think that there is so much freedom when you start to decolonize kind of your thinking and understanding of how you've been socialized that I really wish that I would have explored some of those messages I was receiving at an earlier age, because even, now working in social justice, I'm still constantly trying to make sure that I am kind to myself and that I don't overwork, or that I am not prioritizing other people over myself and my own interests. And I think that especially as women and girls, we are told we're the nurturers, we're the caregivers, we are the empaths, and while that may be true for some, there is so much more expansiveness to people than just what you're told that you should be. And so when you really start to unpack that or question, like, why are you telling me that this is something that I need to do? Or, hey, mom, why are you asking me to do the dishes, but you're not asking my brother? Or even little things like that. I think that starting to question and critically think about things from a young age is something I would have really benefited from. I mean, even around things like body image, right? When we start to really look at doing, now this is hard to do as like a really, really young person because research is, like dense and, things of that sort. But I will say that, making connections between things like our bikini culture, right? This idea of like body image and what it means to be quote unquote beautiful and who defines that. Like when you start to unravel some of those ties of who created some of these things, how does that tie to capitalism? When you're looking at like weight and things of that sort, there is a financial tie. There were not doctors that were coming up with some of these prescriptive things like BMI back in the day. It is people who are also benefiting from the money that they're making off of this type of culture, right? And so as you're starting to just enter into spaces, ask more questions, be curious, and know that you are perfect as you are, right? And saying perfect and perfection, we know, is a symptom of white supremacy culture as well. So I'm not going to say like strive to be perfect, but know that you are enough just as you are, and that it's okay to be who you are as your authentic self. And that if there are messages that are telling you to change, resist those, right? And instead lean into what makes you tick and enjoy the things that make you tick, right? Don't feel sorry or guilty about doing things that you enjoy and that give you peace and rest and joy, because that's so important. And women are so often told that we have to focus on the well-being of others. So, start to unpack that a little bit. And I think little Caroline would be very happy to start to ask my parents some questions about, hey, why are you doing this thing? Or are you sure that that's the right message you want to be telling to me? So that now, as an older person, although I don't have children myself, I have little nieces. And so I'm always planting little seeds of activism or unpacking messages for them. And so I wish that I would have had someone to do that more explicitly for myself.
That's so amazing. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. I mean, especially like,
Yeah, and
yeah.
those are both such strong messages.
Mhm.
Those are things that we will both take away from this.
100%.
100%. I hope our viewers take away from it too.